this computer. And yeah, that's all it gives me. Okay. And Michelle, if you want to, you can turn off your video down the bottom, but it's totally up to you. Cool. Hello. All right, we might get started because it is 1:30 on the dot. And welcome everyone. It's definitely my first time doing a webinar. Is it yours as well? Yeah. No? She's an expert. So we'll just wait for one more person coming into the room. Kia ora. It's exciting. We're going to be, Mackenzie and I will be presenting 2 presentations today on KiwiChat Camp and KiwiChat Sibling Camp. And Mackenzie and I did these presentations at ISAC conference a couple of weeks ago. So we'll be, giving you hopefully some of the same information, and we'll be able to go into a few things in a little bit more detail today because we've got a little bit more time. It's not quite as strict as ISAC. Just a couple of things. If anyone who joins, could you just make sure that you mute your microphone so that it doesn't interrupt. If you've got any questions that you want to ask, you'll be able to see the chat section, and you can just type your question in, and we'll come and talk about those at the end. Otherwise, we'll have time where everyone can ask questions at the end. And great, Christina's used the chat. We'll have some questions at the end, so you can unmute your microphones and let us know if there's anything else you want to say. So I think we'll get started on KiwiChat Camp. So, kia ora. Today we're going to be sharing our real life experience of camp and my academic research, so my master's project. And Mackenzie is going to give you a quick history of KiwiChat Camp, and then I'm going to talk about my master's project in a bit more detail. And just to set the scene, I'm Jessamy. I'm a speech language therapist here at the Talklink Trust in Auckland. And we didn't prep Mackenzie's intro, but she's going to do a bit of that in her section of the presentations today. So you'll hear a lot more about Mackenzie and what she's been up to in terms of Talklink and KiwiChat. So, hopefully this all works. That's not going to the next slide. Good. Cool.
Growing up in Auckland, New Zealand, I had the opportunity to attend KiwiChat days organised by the Talklink Trust. The purpose of these days was to get kids with communication devices together so we could practice using other AAC systems and meet other kids with similar needs. However, there was a limit to what could be achieved in one morning in terms of improving communication skills. Around the same time, the Talklink Trust was wondering how to get more out of KiwiChat days. One of their clients, Holly, was attending AAC camps through Australia. After seeing how valuable the camp experience was for Holly and her family, Holly's mother Lisa became to set up a similar camp in New Zealand. Subsequently, Lisa and the Talklink Trust worked together and created KiwiChat Camp. The first KiwiChat Camp was held in February 2000 to Australia's camp in Whanau, New Zealand. Since then, a camp has been held every second year. The camp provides a fun environment in which kids and their families can learn how to better communicate using their child's ASC system. Furthermore, through wearing wordwords and other low-tech communication systems such as cards, over time, the talk link trust staff and camp volunteers can model communication throughout the day.
We're just having slight issues with sharing desktops. Share screen. So we want desktop 2 though. Share. There we go. Okay, that's working. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry, guys. We're gonna just. Yeah. You just do it, Glenn. Fix it.
It's been using your mic that whole time. So
We'll just see what the people on the chat are saying.
yeah, they're saying
Should we try and do Mackenzie's again?
So if you just give me, rather than hold it, just give me a couple of minutes.
My name is Mackenzie. My name is Mackenzie. My name is Mackenzie.
Is that good?
My name is Mackenzie. My name is Mackenzie.
Yeah, good bet.
Okay.
So it's been using them.
Okay. I think we should probably get you to do your slide again, because I don't think anyone would have heard it apart from the guys in the room here.
Growing up in Auckland, New Zealand, I had the opportunity to attend KiwiChat days organised by the Talk Link Trust. The purpose of these days was to get kids with communication devices together so we could practice using our AAC systems and meet other kids with similar needs. However, there was a limit to what could be achieved in one morning in terms of improving communication competence. Around the same time, the Talk Link Trust was wondering how to get more out of KiwiChat days. One of their clients, Holly, was attending AAC camps here in Australia. After seeing how valuable the camp experience was to Holly and her family, Holly's mother Lisa became determined to set up a similar camp in New Zealand. Subsequently, Lisa and the Talk Link Trust worked together and created KiwiChat Camp. The first KiwiChat camp was held in February 2010 at Totara Springs Camp in Matamata, New Zealand. Since then, a camp has been held every second year. The camp provides a fun environment in which kids and their families can learn how to better communicate using their child's AAC system. Furthermore, through wearing cool word boards and other low-tech communication systems such as pods all the time, the Talk Link Trust staff and camp volunteers can model communication throughout the day. Due to there being limited resources in terms of money, staff and accommodation, not every AAC user can attend KiwiChat Camp. Subsequently, the following criteria has been established to select the campers. Potential campers must be able to use their communication device independently or be working on developing that skill. Additionally, camp is only open to school-aged kids who have a desire to improve their communication skills. Finally, the camper must have at least one family member or caregiver who will be attending the camp with them, although we encourage the whole family to come. During KiwiChat Camp 2016, 18 families attended and 16 families agreed to participate in this research. KiwiChat Camp officially runs for 5 days, although the first and last days are for travelling to and from camp. The 3 other days are packed full of activities from morning to night. The theme of this camp was superheroes. In the mornings, the camp divides into 3 groups. The campers do activities which require them to use their AAC system, such as playing a game or helping write a story. The campers' siblings go and enjoy typical camp activities, for example, BMX or archery. Recently, we have done some activities with both the campers and siblings to teach the siblings how they can assist their brother or sister in becoming communication competent. Meanwhile, the parents and caregivers attend training sessions where Talk Link staff and other professionals provide practical advice and ideas to encourage their child to use their AAC system. As one of the Talk Link Trust ambassadors, I always feel honoured to have the opportunity to speak to the parents and show them how my speech impairment has not limited my ability to achieve. In the afternoon, families have time to relax and enjoy some more traditional camp activities, for example, water slides. Finally, at night, There may be a movie night, a disco, or a family talent show.
So, we know that the research shows that children need significant input in order to learn to use their AAC system independently. And the benefits of KiwiChat Camp and other international AAC camps are really obvious to those who attend. There are only 6 published articles studying the benefits and values of camps as an informant intervention. So subsequently, my master's research explored the experiences and perceptions of families who attended KiwiChat Camp, and that was the 2016 camp, so we're mostly going to be talking about that one, but obviously we've had the 2018 camp earlier this year, so we'll be able to talk about a few things that we've changed based on the preliminary findings from 2016, which is very exciting. So my research project was a 4-part project. The first section, which you'll hopefully be able to see on the slides, was parents and caregivers were asked to do a pre-camp and a post-camp survey. And in both surveys, they were asked about their confidence in supporting their child to use their AAC system. In the post-camp survey, they were then also asked to discuss their experiences at camp and qualitative Likert scales and quantitative Likert scales and qualitative short answer questions were used in those surveys. And then next, 3 randomly selected parents were asked to complete a follow-up telephone interview where they focused on their experiences at camp in a lot more detail. The children who use AAC completed a modified visual survey, which you'll see in a few slides' time, on the final morning of camp. And they were asked about their camp experience, for example, what they learnt and what they really enjoyed. Then the school-age siblings participated in 2 small group interviews with similarly aged children. And they were asked about their experience having a sibling who uses AAC, their confidence in helping that sibling to use their AAC system, and their experience while they were at camp. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the analysis. You can ask me if you want to know a bit more, but basically the quantitative data was analysed using descriptive statistics, just the median and the mode. There was such a small amount of data that it wouldn't have made sense to do anything more than that. And the qualitative data from the open-ended surveys and the interviews were analysed using a general inductive approach. All of the information was triangulated so that we could see the main themes from the whole camp rather than trying to pick apart survey and interview data. The general inductive approach allows development of a framework to describe the main themes evident in the raw data, and it provides a straightforward way of describing the findings that emerge from the data rather than trying to test data with previous assumptions or hypotheses. So the data is straight from our families. On to the more exciting part, the results. So the parent results first. Overall, the overwhelming response to camp was that camp was amazing and all of the families wanted more camps to be run each year so that it could reach more families and families could re-attend. 3 themes emerged from the data. So emotional response, communication outcomes, and socio-cultural outcomes. And these are displayed in the next figure. It's quite hard to see. Obviously, when you're trying to pull the themes of a 5-day holistic camp apart, every family is going to talk about slightly different things, but these were the main things that came up over and over again. So the blue themes were from the survey data only. The green themes were from the interview data only. And then the black themes were from interview and survey data. And I can always send this to you if it's too small to actually see. So families really enjoyed attending camp, which is great. They enjoyed camp in general and they enjoyed the activities. They enjoyed connecting with the staff and other families who were also using AAC. And they also enjoyed connecting with our mentors. The emotional response to camp was reported by almost all of the parents. They reported feeling inspired, motivated, and empowered at the end of camp. However, some of them also reported feeling overwhelmed during camp, mainly due to the fast-paced timetable and also the amount of information that they were learning and processing throughout camp. The families perceived several positive communication outcomes, and as a speechie, that's very exciting that a very short amount of time at camp can produce positive communication outcomes. So some of the parents perceived that their child who uses AAC increased in their linguistic competence, specifically the frequency and number of words used per phrase. I didn't specifically ask about each different communication competence, so there may have been other things that were achieved during camp, but that wasn't the purpose of the research. The research was, what are your experiences and perceptions? So anyone wanting to do more research, it'd be great to actually try and look at the communication outcomes and do some of that measurement over camp. So the parents also reported that they themselves experienced increased confidence, knowledge, and expectations around AAC implementation, and they were a lot more motivated to learn more about AAC. So they reported that engaging in the range of AAC training sessions, observing and participating in aided language stimulation, we mostly call it modelling in New Zealand, and exposure to the spectrum of different AAC systems and access methods and communication strategies had a really positive effect on their perceptions of implementing AAC, and meant that they were more positive, motivated, inspired, and empowered to actually implement it when they got home. So several sociocultural outcomes were also noted in this study. So parents were empowered to implement AAC through, mainly through connecting with mentors. A huge part was connecting with staff who were enthusiastic about AAC and had a really you can do it attitude, and also connecting with other families who were in a very similar situation to themselves. One parent discussed the positive development of her daughter's identity as an AAC user and in general over camp, and only one parent talked about identity and how that was developing, but it seemed to be a really important part of what she was saying in her interview. It was something that she talked a lot about and went into a lot of detail. And once again, other families may have also experienced changes in development of their identity as someone who uses AAC and as a family who use AAC, but I didn't ask about that specifically. There was also a strong sense of belonging reported by almost all of the parents. One parent said, the other aspect of networking was that there was a real sense of we're all in this together, even though we're only with each other for a really minute period of time out of our whole lives. So it really shows that the families came from the whole of New Zealand. They came from rural and urban areas. They came from all the spectrum of socioeconomic groups. And at camp, we're all just the same. We're just families who are trying to figure out this whole AAC journey together. So it was a really important aspect of camp that I'll touch on again at the end, clinical implications part. But I really liked this quote, and I'm just going to read it. It was from a mum, and she wrote it in her survey. So she obviously really wanted to get this across, because most people don't want to write too much in a survey, and she wrote this whole paragraph. So this mum said, I've worked in special ed in the past and completed lots of workshops with TalkLink and all the workshops that have been recommended. ATAN's, Sally Clendon workshops, Camp with Julie Tan, who was the original SLT who inspired me to get serious about AAC for our son. I do regular sessions with Paula, who's in SLT here at TalkLink, who was so helpful, and Jane, who's in the audience now, who's helped me get cracking with Boardmaker. All of this has been the most helpful help that I have received, and I have dealt with loads of professionals. So I assumed that I would not find anything new in terms of learning, but I did. The entire experience was invaluable. The whole thing was well thought out and significant in every aspect. One of the reasons that this quote stood out to me was that the families who come to camp are on all parts of the journey of AAC. Lots of the families who are really new to AAC talked about how they'd learnt so much and connected with so many people, but it was interesting that families who'd obviously done a lot of AAC stuff, been to lots of workshops before, even they said that camp was a really significant part of their AAC journey. On to the children. So the children who used AAC filled out a modified visual survey, so you can see it down the bottom of the slides. That's just the first question, but we had a similar format for all of the questions, and they could use whatever access method appropriate. A speech language therapy student would help them to put a circle around it, or however they were going to mark the survey. So almost all of the campers said that they agreed with statements such as camp was fun, I made friends, the camp show was fun, I want to use my communication device when I get home. So overall, they really enjoyed camp. They really benefited from meeting the mentors, and in most cases, they wanted to use their AAC system more after camp. And part of the reason that my research project has gone further than any of the other 6 articles published before was that it's actually asked for the voice of children who use AAC. Previously, all of the research was just done with speech therapists or teachers or parents or caregivers, but we've never had the voice of children who use AAC. Looking back at it, there's heaps and heaps of things that I think could be done better. And if someone wanted to do some similar research again, I would love to say, this is what I learned. These are some better ways of getting that information. But it was really exciting that we've actually got their voice and what they thought of camp, and that they actually thought that camp was significant in their journey as well. You can look at that slide later, but it's basically everyone pretty much agreed. The median and mode will all agree for everything in the survey data for the children who use AAC. So camp was pretty great for them. On to the siblings. So I interviewed the siblings in 2 groups grouped by age, and 2 global themes emerged from the data. That was enjoyment and outcomes, along with several organising themes, and they're presented in this next figure. So the siblings reported that they really enjoyed camp in general, and that they enjoyed the range of activities. They enjoyed connecting with others who use AAC and with the mentors. They noted several positive outcomes, which included increased knowledge of the range of AAC systems, increased knowledge of how to be a good communication partner, and increased motivation to learn about AAC, increased confidence, and increased AAC use by themselves as well as their sibling, which again, as an SLT, that was only 5 days, and for these siblings to say, oh yeah, I saw my brother or sister using their system way more, like they'll actually bring it out and say things. That's huge for only a 5-day period of intervention. But the thing that struck me the most was that when I asked about whether they'd received training in order to support them to be able to use AAC with their sibling, they all said no and kind of looked at me with these big eyes. A few of the siblings said that they had figured it out just by watching their parents or watching other people use AAC. But when I asked if they'd like to do some training about core vocabulary and modelling and just using the AAC system, they all said yes. And then they voluntarily gave up going to the next camp activity to actually do a bit of training with me, which just shows how motivated they are to help their brother or sister who uses communication system. And even the youngest children, the little 5-year-olds, I only interviewed school-age children. Consent for preschoolers is too tricky. But even the youngest children in the group were really motivated and wanted to learn and help support with that. Clinical implications. It was very hard to write this section of my thesis, and even more tricky to try and condense it into a couple of minutes for a presentation. But the top thing is that camp should be enjoyable. Everyone has to be having fun, otherwise no one's going to want to ever come back. And enjoyment can be achieved through planning age-appropriate activities, highly motivating and accessible activities for the whole family, ensuring that enthusiastic staff and volunteers are available to support the families throughout their camp experience. And not a few people talked about providing yummy food that caters for all diets. So that was dietary restrictions, so it might be pureed food and that kind of thing, but also cultural, religious food preferences as well. The timetable needed to be adjusted so that families have time to process their multiple and complex emotional reactions to camp, and in order to process the information that they were learning. And in our 2018 camp, we, as the camp planning team, spent so much time trying to rejig the timetable and figure out how we can provide families with a space and atmosphere as well as time where they can process, maybe talk to a speech therapist, OT, specialist teacher, or just actually have time with their families to chill out and go for a walk. So I think we're doing well. I think every camp will need changing, and we're making it better and better, but that was exciting. So we also need to continue to provide a mixture of explicit parent training programs as well as immersion in AAC through modelling. Both of those appeared to increase AAC knowledge as well as motivation, inspiration and empowerment. And as camp organisers, we need to integrate explicit training programs for the siblings as well as continue to immerse them in AAC. And I'm very excited to say that 2018 KiwiChat camp, we, once again, it's not just me, it's the camp planning team, I think did a really great job of completely rehashing the sibling program and making sure that they had explicit training mixed in with all of their fun activities. And I think there was significant change between 2016 and 2018 camp in siblings understanding about AAC and actually using it and wanting to use it, being excited to actually use AAC. An effort should be made to invite amazing camp mentors to ensure that each family member has the opportunity to connect with a mentor who they can learn from. And so it was, a privilege to have Mackenzie and Geneva and Gabby and Nathan at the past couple of camps, and hopefully we'll continue to have amazing mentors and ambassadors who can support families through the camp experience. And lastly, families appeared to benefit from meeting other families from a range of backgrounds. So that really produced that sense of belonging, and it means that we need to try and make sure that camp represents families from a range of geographical regions, from ages, cultures, as well as types of AAC systems, so that families have the opportunity to connect with and learn from diverse families. Almost there. So the literature shows that there's huge demands placed on families of children who have complex communication needs, and they often have difficulty finding the time to implement AAC, as well as finding the time to attend training in order to increase their knowledge and expectations around AAC. So the results of this study indicated that attending camp, even for a very short time, 5 days, resulted in a positive experience for the whole family, as well as a number of beneficial communication and sociocultural outcomes. All of these outcomes highlighted the interconnectedness of camp, and it's very unlikely that these results would have happened with anything other than camp. Camp is very unique due to its connectedness, meeting others with really similar needs, and of course its intensity. These findings are similar to those described in the literature. However, the interview methods that I used in this research, as well as getting the AAC user's voice and interviewing siblings, hopefully provided a more in-depth analysis of how families experience and perceive camp. So that's us for this section. We'll do our sibling camp presentation next, but does anyone have any questions about this part? You can either unmute your microphones, or I'm just going to go onto the chat thing now. Otherwise, you can save your questions to the end.
Are you going to do your PhD?
No. Absolutely not. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yeah, that sounds terrible. All right, we don't have any questions and we have no chat, so we might start our next one. And if you think of something else, you can let us know.
You're still on desktop background.
We're still on desktop. What do I do about that? Should I exit and start again?
Yeah, to share. Yeah, and then back to you. Gotcha. Yeah.
We good?
Yep.
All right. So, all right, our next presentation that we did at Isaac is sibling camp experiences and perceptions of siblings following a sibling-focused AAC camp. And we've actually got the honour of having Jenna in the room with us. So Mackenzie and I presented this research, but it was actually Jenna's honours, speech language therapy honours project that she takes full credit for this, but she's very graciously said that Mackenzie and I can present the same presentation we did at Isaac to all of you, but I'm sure that if you've got questions, we can get Jenna up here and she can answer any of those questions that you've got. So thanks, Jenna, for actually letting us present your research again. It's very exciting. We get started. So Jenna's research focused on the experiences and perceptions of siblings of children with complex communication needs. And is that? Has that worked? That's worked. All right.
Academic research and common sense tells us that communication is crucial in developing and maintaining relationships. It also tells us that sibling relationships are often the longest lasting relationship that a person will have throughout their lifetime. Subsequently, it is important to acknowledge that the role played by siblings of children with complex communication needs. Jenna's research project resulted from the preliminary findings from Jessamy's master's project, which explored and documented the experiences and perceptions of families who attended KiwiChat camp, a 5-day camp for children who use AAC systems and their families to learn more about AAC and how to use it in different settings. During this research, Jessamy interviewed the siblings and they reported being motivated to learn about AAC and how to be a good communication partner, but that they had not had any explicit training. Instead, many of the siblings had figured out a way to communicate with their speech-impaired brother or sister by themselves. For these reasons, the Talk Link Trust held their first sibling camp in April 2017 to teach siblings of children with complex communication needs relevant communication strategies. As a speech therapist who works at the Talk Link Trust, Jessamy was involved in the planning and organising of the sibling camp. In my family, I am the second of 3 girls. My sisters and I have a healthy sibling relationship, lots of shared memories and a lot of mockery. In saying that, I don't feel they would mock me if I didn't have a way of reciprocating their favour through my communication device. Trust me, I give as good as I get. So, my older sister was asked to come to the camp and share her personal experience of being a sibling of an AAC user.
So although it was called KiwiChat Sibling Camp, it was more like a school holiday program. So it was a 2-day event which ran during the school holidays from 9 till 3 p.m. It was held at Sunnydene, which is a special school here in Auckland. So all of the facilities were accessible, which was really important. So speech therapists and teachers from TalkLink were involved, as well as Sally Clendon from Massey University and some of the SLT students from Massey University, as well as Mackenzie and her sister. So I was the main camp coordinator, and Sally and myself, along with a few other people, planned most of the camp program. Mackenzie attended as the TalkLink mentor and ambassador to provide support and teaching to the siblings as well as their brother or sister who uses AAC. But obviously camp is a massive undertaking and takes a team to put it all together. It was very much a team-based program. So the theme of our 2017 sibling camp was the circus, and on day 1 the siblings just came on their own. And they spent time getting to know one another and learning more about communication. So each child was provided with the same communication system that their brother or sister uses. And they had that for the whole day to carry around and use to communicate. And then every adult, whether that was TalkLink staff or volunteers or SRT students, had a pod book or a core board to model on. And so everyone spoke AAC for the whole day. And then on day 2, their brother or sister who uses a communication device, as well as at least one parent, joined the siblings. And so the whole family had the opportunity to put into practice some of the skills that they'd learnt on day 1, and obviously have lots of fun. So at sibling camp, we didn't have a parent program. The parents kind of came as caregivers, because some of the children had complex feeding or personal care needs that we wouldn't have enough information and confidence to support them with that. So the parents were there to help and observe, but we didn't have a specific parent program. This was about siblings, and so that's the only people that we focused on, siblings, and then their brother or sister who uses a communication device or communication system. So each activity had a being a great communication partner focus. So for example, the focus of the treasure hunt and the face painting was having fun, and the focus of dressing up was listening, and the ice cream sundae bar was waiting and giving time. And so the siblings created a poster like this by sticking the focus of each activity onto their poster, and decorating it and taking home the poster as a reminder of how to be a great communication partner. And the team, SRTs, teachers, and Mackenzie did a short teaching session before and after each activity to reinforce and explain that focus and what that might look like in each of the activities. So the siblings were taught a little bit about the communication device that they were going to be using, but a lot of it was just immersion and teaching these kind of things, like listening and not anticipating, and modelling and all of that kind of thing. So they didn't learn a lot of technical things explicitly, but along the way during the activities they would ask amazing questions, and whoever was supporting them in that activity would do some teaching with them around that specific device.
Although research shows that children need significant support in order to learn to use their AAC systems independently, and the benefits of camps as a method of providing intervention are obvious to those who attend, there is a huge lack of research on this topic. There are only 6 published articles on the value of camps as a form of intervention, and there is limited research about providing explicit training to siblings in order to support them to learn about AAC and how to be a good communication partner. Jenna's research, therefore, explored and documented the experiences and perceptions of siblings of children with complex communication needs who attended TalkLink Trust's first sibling-focused AAC camp.
So Jenna conducted interviews with the siblings who attended camp. There were 7 siblings from 5 different families. There were 4 boys and 3 girls between ages of 8 and 10 years old. It was a very small camp. It was a lot smaller than we'd hoped, but this was the very first time we'd ever done anything like this. And I guess there was no word of mouth to get out and get people excited. The other thing was that it was only 2 days in the school holidays, and we did require a parent to come. So it meant that some families who couldn't take leave or who were living outside of Auckland would have liked to come but couldn't for various different reasons. We did have one family who came from Tauranga, and so those 2 siblings only attended camp the first day, and so Jenna interviewed them at the end of the first day, and then all of the other siblings, Jenna interviewed them at the end of the second day. So hopefully if we get to do another sibling camp, more people will know about it, and we'll be able to get these previous siblings to talk about how much fun they actually did have, and how much they learnt. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the analysis, but Jenna and I both used very similar analysis frameworks. So Jenna used an inductive thematic analysis approach, and it was used to group the data reported by the participants. It's a data-driven coding system that starts with analysing the data, encoding information, then systematically extracting themes from the data. After the data had been coded through this method, themes for each of the questions were derived. So it's the same sort of approach that I talked about before. We're taking the themes exactly from the siblings. We're not trying to put ideas onto what they've said, which also means it takes an extremely long time to do this type of research, transcribing and then going through and analysing again and again and again. So the findings, very exciting. So for the first research question, which focused on the camp experience, 4 themes emerged: learning, connection, enjoyment, and expectations. And then for the second question, which focused on the experiences and perceptions of having a sibling who uses a communication system, 2 things became evident, and that was challenges and benefits. So the themes, definitions, sub-themes, and some examples from the data are on these next slides. It's again quite small. Hopefully you can read it, or otherwise I'm sure we could share it another time. So once again, overall, the children enjoyed the camp experience. They learnt more about communication systems, and they learnt communication partner strategies to support their interactions with their sibling who uses a communication device. Most of the participants enjoyed the learning activities and meeting others who shared similar experiences of having a sibling with complex communication needs. Some of the participants' expectations of camp differed from what they actually experienced. So we sold camp as a circus-themed camp, and some of the kids thought that we didn't have enough circus vibe going on, and that kind of the idea of camp was a bit misrepresentative of just going somewhere from 9 till 3. And some of the children, of course, express their like or dislike of doing certain activities like playing wet head or pie face, which is normal when you get a whole bunch of kids in a room. They're not all going to like doing the same things. But the siblings seem to gain confidence and competence when they had the opportunity to learn how to use the AAC systems on the first day of camp. And furthermore, they were excited to model to their families on day 2. So one sibling even said, "I got to teach mum because she did everything wrong." So I think they really enjoyed that second day, being able to show their parents and show their brother or sister what they'd learnt. The children also felt that they had learnt how to better communicate with their sibling. So waiting and giving time to their sibling to respond seemed to be the most important takeaways for their children. And I can think of loads of adults who I'd love for them to learn those skills. So being able to learn that as a very young child sibling, I think is just going to be amazing. It set them up for life. The siblings also learnt that they could help their brother or sister to learn language by building on what they said. So for example, if their brother or sister said the cat, they as the communication partner could then add to it the black cat, the big cat, the little cat, and extend the utterance. The participants also reported both benefits and challenges of having a sibling who uses AAC, but most of which was focused on how AAC supports their sibling to communicate, with some challenges being reported about navigating an AAC system and waiting for their sibling to respond. And additionally, feelings of empathy for their sibling with complex communication needs were really apparent. The siblings seemed to be very conscious of how difficult it must be to use an AAC system when you don't know where the words are, or you're not able to respond as quickly as you would like. So the children, however, even after those challenges, the children felt that using an AAC system meant that their siblings have the ability to communicate, even if they don't have speech, which was very cool. And one of the siblings said, I guess we'll probably get closer together because we'll have to work together too, suggesting that communicating through an AAC system may require teamwork, and therefore that's going to help develop their sibling relationships even further. Clinical implications. A few similar ones to KiwiChat Camp. So the majority of the participants in the current study found that camp was a learning experience which increased both their competence and confidence to use an AAC system and their knowledge of communication partner strategies. They learnt communication partner strategies such as waiting, not anticipating, and extending language. In addition, most of the participants were motivated to use their new skills in the future when they got home, which is really important because we want siblings, parents to be able to actually put this stuff into practice when they go home or when they go to school. Further implications for camp organisers is camp should be fun, same as the other research. It needs to be an exciting place where hopefully we can meet their expectations regarding activities and themes and that kind of thing. I think that was a good eye-opener for us, making sure that we actually meet their expectations. And once again, a range of families from a range of backgrounds, geographical regions, ages, cultures, and types of AAC systems should be invited so that the siblings can learn to connect with other children who are going through really similar journeys to themselves. Once again, mentors need to be involved with camp, as well as having a sibling of a mentor to come and talk to the children and talk about what was it like growing up, and what would I have done differently? What could I help you guys to learn quicker? And finally, explicit teaching of AAC and communication partner strategies should be incorporated throughout the day in really motivating ways so that the siblings gain knowledge and motivation to use AAC with their brother or sister. I think we shouldn't underestimate how much explicit training even our young siblings can take in and actually start implementing with their brother or sister. Something that we didn't get to say in our, I'm going to digress, in our Isaac presentation because of the time, was that for both my research and Jenna's research, the aim of the research was just to look at perceptions and experiences at camp, but we didn't measure the maintenance or generalisation after camp. That wasn't in the scope of an honours or a master's thesis, probably more a PhD, but I think it's a huge gap that we haven't addressed is, right, these families had an amazing time, these siblings had an amazing time, what happens when they go back to regular life where, they've got extended family who don't support AAC, or they've got a teacher who doesn't support AAC. And so, yeah, anyone else wanting to do research, I think that's the next step, is that we really need to look at what happens after camp. So that's us. Any questions or anything anyone wants to say?
Are we planning KiwiChat siblings for 2019, Jessamy?
I don't know if everyone heard that, but Jane just asked, are we planning KiwiChat sibling camp 2019. When Sally and I talked to Anne, our CEO of TalkBank, at the end of last year, she said yes, she was keen, but that's kind of as far as it's gone at this point. I think it would be so worth it. Yeah. And I think now that there's only a couple of people who were at camp last time, but I think now that we've got a framework, we're not starting from scratch, I think it'd be much easier to actually plan. So maybe keep in mind if you guys have got some families out there.
Do you would consider involving any psychologists around the sibling stuff? Because obviously there's a lot of emotional things that go alongside being a sibling of someone who has a complex communication need.
Yeah, and so Fern was just saying, did we consider involving any psychologists? Because there's obviously a lot of emotional aspects that come along with having a sibling who uses a communication device. In answer to that, and maybe, I don't know if Max got anything to say, partly, but kind of not. So we did talk to Sib Shop, who are a really cool organisation who work with siblings of children who have a disability, any kind of disability, not just complex communication needs. We were going to try and get someone to come and do like a little 1 hour workshop type thing, but that all kind of fell apart. What they did do for us is they produced a little booklet, which I think we've got, it will be saved and I can pass it on to anyone who wants it, a little booklet on, kind of, I've got a sibling who needs extra help with some things, they need some help with their communication, ideas. And we also did just say to the parents, we're going to hand out this booklet. If you want to talk more about this or get some more support, they're available. But I think we should do better next time. So if people have got contacts or ideas, I think we should definitely make that an extra part of it. Yeah. Anyone else? Cool. Well, I think we're done. Thank you everyone for listening, and for those who are going to be viewing later, thanks for watching. Just putting my ATANS hat on, taking my presenter hat off. The ATANS Board of Trustees have got plans to get someone or a couple of people who presented at Isaac to present in a webinar like this for each of the following months until the end of the year. So keep a lookout on the ATANS website, our Facebook page, the newsletter, and check your emails, and maybe check that your colleagues who you think should be ATANS members are actually getting the emails. Yes, and one last thing, we have our AGM coming up next, the 10th of September. It will be physically here in Auckland at the TalkBank office, but we will also be hosting it over Zoom, so you can just zoom in. And yeah, we'll send out a link. I'm looking at Magnus, but we'll send out a link. So yeah, hopefully as many as people can attend. And if you're in Auckland and you're coming to the AAC SIG, the AGM will be straight after the AAC SIG. So hopefully you can just stick around and we'll try and make it as fast as we can. Cool. Thanks everyone. Bye.